Hey, what's up, guys? Capo Isabelle here, and I can't tell you what's a bigger dumpster fire now. YouTube or the outside world. I'm sure at some point I'll talk about the situation going on in real life and my opinion on that, but today I'm going to be doing what every YouTuber must do at some point in their life. Complain about YouTube. You see, a lot of YouTubers are actually talking about if there were an alternative to YouTube, how they'd abandon ship and go over there right away. And I recently saw some Ordinary Gamers video on the topic, and I figured, why not give my opinion on the situation? By the way, I'll leave a link to his video in the description and in the card in the top right. You should totally sub to his channel while you're at it, since he makes actually good content, unlike me.
Bro, I'm really about to get your pickle chin now, boy.
Anyway, as the usual, YouTube is continuing to push out more and more policies targeting the commentary community, with the policy now saying, and I quote, "In some rare cases, we may remove content or issue other penalties when a creator creates content that harms the YouTube ecosystem by persistently inciting hostility between content creators for personal financial gain." Now, the first part sounds dandy. Punish people that harm the YouTube ecosystem like you should, but then the second half is worded so vague that it could be applied to commentary channels that criticize other channels. I'm fairly confident that this was implemented because of the dick measuring contest between H3H3 and Keemstar, with both of them trying to show that they are more degenerate than the other, but the problem I have with it is that it seems like YouTube is punishing YouTubers as a whole, instead of just punishing those two brainlets. From what I've been able to tell, there really was no punishment to H3H3 or Keemstar besides them being told to please stop. I personally think this is karma coming back to bite YouTube and Susan in the ass for talking to H3H3 about the implementation of anti-bullying policies, but it's still affecting all of us for the mistakes of these two channels that are basically getting off scot-free besides having their sponsorships dropped, as well as losing some subs from all this drama. But while I'm bitching about YouTube, allow me to bitch about some other things that they're completely ignoring, and I'm fairly confident that they will be issues in the future. 3 AM channels, we all know what they are, hopefully, and if you don't, then I'll explain. It's a cancer trend where someone pretends to call a famous fictional character from some IP, let's say Peppa Pig for an example. After calling, spoopy things will happen, and it's clearly content that only developing fetuses would find entertaining. Now, it sounds like harmless fun and a good source of content for commentary channels such as myself to pull from, since they're such an easy target, but that would put our channels at risk. You see, making fun of these channels will put our channel at risk of termination because of how vaguely and frankly brain-dead policies against anti-bullying are worded. Even though the true culprit of those who should be terminated are the 3 AM channels themselves. You see, these 3 AM channels are ignoring an important aspect of YouTube that was enforced near the end of last year. An aspect that goes above even YouTube, but instead an aspect of the federal government of the United States. COPA. Haha! You thought you heard the last of COPA, but actually no. You see, these channels are obviously making content targeted for children. I think it's important to note that just because the content is not appropriate for children doesn't mean that it wasn't clearly made with children as the target demographic. These channels use popular children's characters such as Peppa Pig to attract viewership from children, and none of them I found while searching were marked as targeted for children, meaning they had no restrictions that the COPA guidelines would implement onto them. In other words, they are blatantly breaking COPA law, and if the FTC were to catch wind of these channels, it'd fuck YouTube over even more. That being said, YouTube ignores these facts because these channels are raking in a lot of money. Ignoring COPA as well, these channels might be breaking terms of service in regards to scams and other misleading content. I'm not one to talk about that. Some Ordinary Gamers has talked about those types of channels a lot more, and if you're interested in that, just check out some of the content he's made on 3AM channels. Now I'm going to talk about a policy that affects me again. It's not a new policy, but one that I've never really had the opportunity to talk about. So, for those who forgot, YouTube a while back, when they were implementing the new anti-bullying policies, made an emphasis to protect marginalized groups, including the LGBTQ+ community. And my god, coming from the perspective of someone from this community, it is a fucking double-edged sword. It's nice to be protected from genuine hate, but the implementation is, as per usual for YouTube, dog shit. It's less about protecting us from blatant hate, and more about overcompensating and protecting us too much. We get it, YouTube. There was a time where merely mentioning LGBTQ+ in a video would get it age restricted, but now you're overcompensating, and it's causing us to get better treatment than others outside of the community. I appreciate having another side of the conversation, unlike a lot of people within my community. I appreciate the Ben Shapiros of the world because it allows an actual fucking discussion on the topic rather than just saying, this is how it will be, and if you go against that, then you're a transphobe, or something along those lines. I don't want you to protect me from discussions on gender identity and sexuality. We need to have more discussions rather than silencing the opposite opinion and giving us special treatment. I don't want to be pandered to. I just want to be treated like a normal fucking human being. Now, I'm going to take this privilege that I have and use it to explain what YouTube should be doing on their platform.
Literally.
So if YouTube wasn't trash, they'd go back to the simplistic style of the TOS that they had before. The golden age of YouTube to some people was, ironically, the era right before the terms of service changes started to kick in. The era in which Leafy reigned supreme, and commentary channels were the big thing. Obviously, there were some channels, including Leafy, that went too far with jokes, and obviously calling people with mental disabilities names was going way too far. However, the core concept of being able to joke about others' content and crack jokes about other content creators is my main point I'm getting at. Jokes are fucking jokes. And if you can't take a joke, then it shouldn't be the fault of the person who's making the joke. The idea that we need to police comedy is honestly what makes YouTube so fucking stale. We have content creators that make bland comedy sketches that are able to continue making unfunny shit content while being pushed by YouTube because they fit their idea of a good content creator. Or more notably, an unoffensive content creator. At least that's the case in some cases. Others they push as unoffensive, but they're more unoffensive to the left rather than being unoffensive in general. YouTube has become a stale community that has no real reason to change in the slightest because we have zero choice but to accept that what horrible changes they make, and we have zero say in the matter. That's why we should take action as YouTubers to get a competitor in the market. So a basic concept in capitalism is the concept that competition between companies ultimately helps the consumer. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors, but I'm leaving those out for the sake of making this a simple idea. You see, YouTube doesn't have a real competitor. Yes, there's Twitch, but Twitch is fully about streaming content, while YouTube is really the only place that we can go to for edited content. Well, besides Facebook, but I mean, come on. We need an actual competitor to get YouTube to start listening and implementing policies that will be better for the average YouTuber. Until then, they have zero reason to care about YouTubers as a whole, and will continue to only listen to the yes men within their community that they continue to circle themselves around. YouTube rarely ever talks to content creators that oppose them in any way, and are usually looking for creators that will back their opinions that they already have. If we have a competitor, they'll have to start taking their job fucking seriously and listen to YouTubers as a whole. They'll quit listening to the Lily Sings of YouTube and start listening to the average YouTuber that is getting fucked over by their poorly worded and poorly implemented policies. While I'm talking about corporate YouTube, it's a good thing to note that while we love to target Susan as the main supervillain implementing these rules, it's far from her only doing these things. Part of me actually feels bad for her since she's the target of this, even though sometimes she may not even be the one at fault for implementing these rules. Instead, it may just be the other YouTube employees to blame for the situation. So next time you want to blame Susan for some misguided policy, or a sheer brain-dead action in regards to copyright claims on YouTube, just remember that it's YouTube as a whole to blame and not Susan. Which actually leads me to my last point of the video.
Look, here's the thing.
Fine. Listen,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
YouTube is making these stupid policy changes targeting commentary channels and claiming to be protecting YouTubers from harassment, even though they ignore YouTubers getting false copyright strikes on their channels, and when the YouTubers appeal those strikes, the other person will take the information from that strike and use it to blackmail the individual and threaten to dox them. YouTube truly doesn't care about protecting its content creators, since they're complacent when YouTubers are extorted or doxed because of the broken copyright system. YouTube still hasn't done anything about Matt Tran and Tech Lead blackmailing and doxing another YouTuber by exploiting the YouTube copyright system, and yet here they are implementing more rules that will fuck over content creators. YouTube, fix your broken-ass copyright system so that people don't get blackmailed and doxed before you start standing on your soapbox and preaching about how you're protecting content creators from harassment. YouTube staff are absolute fucking jokes, and honestly, they make it hard for me to justify putting time and effort into editing commentary videos when there's the possibility that the video could just be taken down and my channel could be terminated just because I'm criticizing YouTubers and YouTube as a whole. I'm ending this video with one last statement. Fuck this website.